Brahma Chaloka Dipati Sahampati Katan Chaliana Divaramaya Chatam Santi Dasata Parajaka Jatika Dese tu Dhammam Anukampi Mam Prajam.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. Computers are such funny things. As I'm doing this, I'm getting a little thing that I didn't turn off, so I'm getting little banners going up from Ajahn Cholo in Thailand, give me his latest news. Funny how these things are. He's very chatty, this one. These friendships do persist, and it's one of the pleasures. Obviously, it's one of the complications and sources of turmoil in the world as well. But when you have a good friend who likes to keep in touch, that's quite a lovely thing as well. Goes along with gratitude, doesn't it? I think some of you I haven't seen for a while, and just to say, you may or may not know, we're just about finished our winter retreat here at Tisarana near Ottawa, Canada, and we've winter this year, and we still have quite a bit of snow on the ground. If it ever deigns to warm up during the day, it'll go fairly quickly, I think. I've been feeding the deer every day all winter, which has been very pleasant, very lovely source of reflection, I think, seeing them each day. And of course, they're now used to it, and they certainly expect me to come up with some corn once or twice a day. And then I put sunflower seeds out for the chickadees, and now they're being joined by some woodpeckers and blue jays and nuthatches and a few other species. But and squirrels, they come for the seeds as well. So that's the life at my kuti. It doesn't take, when the mind is relatively quiet, it doesn't take much to to entertain you, you might say. But entertainment is perhaps too coarse a word. There's a source of enjoyment, mudita, joy that I have in seeing these creatures thrive in their own way, and also just to see them. I mean, I've spent quite a bit of time just looking at the deer and marveling at how it is that they survive a winter, because the forest it can be a very cold place, very silent. It's unforgiving, It doesn't give an inch. It just persists in its frigid temperatures sometimes, and there doesn't seem to be anything to eat, and yet these deer survive. And so because I spend time reflecting on them pretty well every day. I mean, I find my respect and my love for them does develop owing to this. So what else? Well, we're sort of warming up in terms of several of us who have some responsibilities to consider the building of a hall, a meditation hall, so occupying a bit of attention, not too much, but a bit in the last few weeks. We'll have to wait for the roads, our gravel roads in this area, to dry up and firm up. So for we're in a rural area, so the roads aren't always in good enough condition to allow large trucks to pass over them. So we have to wait for that to change, and then we should be starting to receive big trucks coming and big machinery, and there'll be a lot of infrastructure work, digging to do. It'll be quite a mess for quite a while. I may have mentioned that I was looking out over the area where it's going to be built sometime in the fall, and Lumpur Viradhamma was with me, and I said, boy, it's just going to be a mess next spring here. It's just awful. Digging for septic, and we have to dig a great big hole to contain a water tank, so that if there were ever to be a fire, the fire trucks can come and they'd have a ready source, a large source of water. So there's a lot of digging that's going to take place, and then of course all the concrete work and so on and so forth. So I said, yeah, it's going to be a real mess. And for Viradhamma, the true builder that he is, this is his third monastery, I think. He said, yeah, I can hardly wait. So that's in our future, and we're keeping an eye on all of the building costs, which of course aren't doing much other than getting more exorbitant all the time. But what can you do? You just begin when you can, and we can't be in any hurry. We can just go as quickly as we can. So best case scenario would see the building up to at a rough stage, but closed in by, say, next November. But that may be too optimistic. We'll have to see, because you don't want the building at a stage where it gets snowed on and snowed in throughout the winter. That's not good for everything inside. So otherwise, one of our monks is still in Thailand. He's been having his first few months in Thailand as a bhikkhu. He's been enjoying himself and being treated very well. He spent a bit of time at our legendary remote forest monastery or hermitage called Daodam. And most of the other time has been spent in the area where Ajahn Pavaro resides. So he's been very well looked after there, and gone on his alms round in the mornings, and so he's going to have lots of stories to tell. I think it's been nice to think of him there, and what we've heard of him, I think he's doing really well. And what else? Couple of young men who will be coming Anagarikas, or that's the plan, in the next couple of months. And we have 2 Anagarikas, 2 Pakaus here at the moment. So the community is, it's quite vibrant. When you have Anagarikas, you have lots of help. And that's always a great thing in a community like ours. There have only been 3 bhikkhus, myself and Venerable Amarasiri, who is, Amarasiri, who is, what is he? He's 4 years in the robes right now. In addition, of course, to Lumpur Viradhamma, whose birthday is coming up, and it's his 75th birthday coming up next month. So that's going to get properly attended to, I think. Even if the bhikkhus around him forgot, there'd be a lot of lay people who would not allow us to get away with that. So that's coming up in our world. doesn't take much in a small community for something to be really newsworthy. So I think I've given you just about all you need to hear for that. It's been very good. Our stewards, the kind of long-term retreatants who've been here, have just been marvelous. Really a lovely group of people, very compatible, helpful, and have also benefited a deal from the opportunity to spend this time, in most cases at least a month, but usually 2 or 3 months in this quiet space. So it's been a very good winter retreat. I think everyone would agree to that. So, well, I saw you all last month, and this is kind of a nice opportunity for me because well, usually if it's every other month, I've forgotten what I spoke about the last time, and then I'm worried that I'm going to repeat myself and all that kind of thing. But I do sort of remember what I spoke about last time, and I thought I'd just kind of, I'll just give you the whole talk all over again. How's that? No, I'm just kidding. But I think I was talking about sort of the texture of mindfulness in everyday life, which passes us by because everyday life becomes routinized, becomes habitual, and habit can be a necessary thing because that's how we seem to get things done as a rule. But it is possible, and certainly with the kind of the frames of attention that we are trying to cultivate in meditation, it is possible at least to, and actually important, I would say, to insert into these regular daily activities some kind of elevated sense of attention. And so, I gave all of the standard examples: putting your hands in warm water as you wash your dishes, turning on the switch to turn on the lights, opening a door, closing a door, things like that, getting in your car. I'm reminded of instructions around walking meditation, actually, where because walking is a habitual kind of thing, so is sitting and breathing, for that matter, isn't it? I mean, the challenge to raise a consciousness to the level of some attentiveness is always there. That's why we meditate. That's what meditation is about for much of the time for us. So in walking meditation, similarly, walking back and forth. So sometimes meditation masters will recommend, well, at the beginning of each walking course, just you remind yourself, you're sort of beginning again. And so you know what you're doing, and you bring your attention to the fact that you're starting again. And you can start bringing the ending of the walking path into attention as well. Ending, and then you're turning, and then you're beginning again. And then even in the middle, because of course a walking course, a Bindabat or a Jongron path is a set length. We always recommend that it has some sort of set length, 20, 30, 40 steps, something like that. But you mark it out with a couple of rocks or a couple of sticks or whatever it is. So then in the middle, you can remind yourself as well. And that reminder can bring your attention back to what it is you're doing. So it freshens up the sense of mindfulness in the middle of the course. So I'm bringing this kind of instruction to mind with regard to these mundane activities because due to the complexity of what I'm sure you're all or most of you are engaged in from one day to the next, driving to and from work or shopping, getting groceries, going up and down the shopping aisles, talking with friends on the phone. I mean, it's a very varied and complex set of routines that you're engaged in, probably, for the most part. So you have to find things. Of course, sometimes you'll remember, oh, here I am. I'm sitting in my car again. That'll come to you, and it'll come more often to you as you remind yourself to be attentive. But before that happens, maybe take the beginnings and endings of things, or at least the beginnings of things. Okay, I'm getting in my car and I'm sitting in my car. Where is it that I'm going? What is it that I need to do? What is it that I intend to do? Who will I likely see? That kind of thing. So you're setting off in some sort of way. Maybe if you're seeing someone important, a conversation that awaits you, before you actually turn the car on, just turn your mind to that just for a moment. May my friend be well. May he receive what I need to share with him or her. May they receive this with a generous attitude, or in a happy state of mind, or whatever comes to mind. So think about what it is that you're about to be engaged in, and then you start your car, and then of course you have the business of watching what you're doing and putting on the turn signal and all of that kind of thing. But anyway, so just an example: getting in the car. You're at work. You're going to set off home. Same sort of thing. You turn off the computer. I guess you have a computer. I'm just making this all up on the fly, you understand. Maybe you don't even have a workplace anymore. Maybe you're all working from home, I'm not sure. But you're setting off in some sort of way before you begin. There's a transition. You were just doing something else, and now you're about to start something else. You're leaving a space. You have to leave through the door and all the rest of it, but you're leaving a space. You've got to get up off your chair, whatever it is. Basically, what I'm suggesting is that you can, for the habitual elements of a day, you can probably divide it quite easily. And you don't need to break it into 60 parts, but just 2 parts when you start, beginning and ending, or beginning in the middle or something, just 2 parts. What is it that I do at this time? What kind of frame of mind can I bring that will bring this set of activities to how can I be effective? How can I ensure that my mind state is kindly, is honest, is where it needs to be while this is going on? And then I end that and I come home. What else do you do? Well, you go for a walk. Same kind of thing. Now you're relaxing. Maybe you're like Joyce. You're walking into the forest every once in a while. It's a very lovely sort of thing. Why do you do that? Remind yourself. How wonderful it is that I live in a place where I have a forest that I can drive to and walk in. How lovely it is that I have a backyard that I can go and sit in, because it has these 3 trees that I water every summer and that. Or how lovely it is that I have this quiet neighborhood that I can walk around and maybe quietly wish these neighbors that I know a little bit, wish them well. Each house I pass, just be safe and secure. You pass dogs, you pass cats, each one of those can be a little mental greeting, perhaps. I mean, our days are actually extraordinarily rich when you look at it, even in these simple kinds of ways. So all I'm suggesting here is to find certain elements of the routine which are easy to identify, which don't make your day any more onerous and dutiful and duty bound than it already is, but bring a sense of buoyancy. Because actually reminding the mind to be attentive and knowing why it is that you're engaged in this, after all, Have you not noticed that being more mindful of your day is not actually a good thing? That it actually can, from time to time, bring a bit of joy into your life, that sense of uplift or buoyancy. So, in fact, making these little moments to remind the heart and mind of what's going on can become part of a beautiful routine. These too can be habitual, you see. Not all habits, as I often observe, are negative or are mindless. We can develop good habits, and that's largely about. It's largely what wholesome, beneficial practice is about. Is making certain frames of mind, sources of attention, habitual. They come to mind regularly, if you like, out of habit. They become normal. They become our normal ways of perceiving things. Before engaging in a conversation, we now normally just bring a sense of goodwill to the person we're about to speak, for instance. So these things are utterly possible, are achievable in human life, and they bring potentially such a they do bring ease. They bring also a peacefulness to life, a quietude to the heart, and allow us to see the stuff of our life, the texture of experience more clearly, more honestly, more generously, more vividly. So it's in this way, I think, that we start to make sense of this lovely observation that the Buddha makes, and I'm sure you've heard many times. The Dhamma is beautiful in the beginning, it's beautiful in the middle, and beautiful in the end. And when this phrase is normally used, we think, well, when we encounter the Dhamma, there's this seeing the beauty of it, seeing the truth, feeling the truthfulness of Dhamma, and sensing, intuiting how that truth reaches right into the heart of our experience, into all of our experience. Even intuiting that for a moment is a remarkable and beautiful time and experience. And of course, the end, beautiful in the end. Well, we think of the suttas when this bhikkhu, this bhikkhuni, this or that lay person experiences a Dhamma, realizes a Dhamma at some level, achieves one or another of the great stages of awakening. So this kind of end, of course, is very easy to understand as being beautiful when the heart is liberated to some degree or another, sees truth, breaking fully and finally through the obscurations of our hindrances, until we see reality as it is in some precious way, some precious way which is utterly transformative. So that's very beautiful. I think we can all understand that. But well, before that happens, are there not maybe small endings that we could identify in our practice? The time maybe there was some insight that arose in a retreat or in daily life when that old grudge you had with a sibling or your mother or someone in your neighborhood or something like that just kind of seemed to fall away, and you feel the relief, the relief of being unburdened. The weight falls away. You've seen them in a different kind of way, and it's never quite the same again. That sense of grudge never quite emerges in the same kind of way because it just sort of can't. You saw something which made you have compassion. Suddenly you saw them in a way which was filled with a generous heart space of compassion. Maybe it's just something simple like I never thought they understood, but they do, because they suffer just like I do. I didn't know they had that problem in their life. I had no idea that their mother was like this, or their father was like this. I had no idea that they suffered in that kind of way. My goodness. And so something falls away, and that is a kind of ending. It ought to be acknowledged and rejoiced in, appreciated for what it is, reflected on even as a kind of victory, a victory of the heart, a victory of insight over what it is that obscures us normally, because we don't see, and sometimes we're just very persistent in the way that we don't see. We refuse to see almost. We're stubborn sometimes because of the inertia, the ongoing inertia of our own obscurations. And they're like that, and we don't recognize them for what they are often. And sometimes when they fall away, some of them fall away or fall away just for an instant, we get a glimmer of the real beauty of life. So those are endings, and in a way, it's like the middle part of that beautiful Dhamma as well, because Ajahn Chah would sometimes observe, when he would be around, maybe in the middle of the rains retreat, when he'd been giving his long Dhamma desanas, and people were encouraged to just give their whole lives to their practice, and he was perceiving in the sangha around him this just astonishing diligence. And he remarked sometimes on the beauty of that in a community, for instance, seeing people encouraging one another, usually not through speaking, but just encouraging through their own example of diligence, of working through things. So that sense of diligence is very beautiful in its own way. And with practice, and I think we can all attest to this here, but just with practice, giving yourself to the occasional retreat, or an afternoon of sitting and walking, or however you can arrange these things. But there is a real beauty, a real and true beauty to diligence, giving the heart to something and persisting. And persisting long enough to see how the grammar of a practice begins to make sense of our experience. So the Dhamma, beautiful in the beginning, beautiful in the middle, beautiful in the end. And there are, thinking of a little list, of these things, because the way ignorance expresses itself, it does so in different dimensions. It does it in different densities, you might say. And at one level, we have a level of what's called transgression. You're literally saying something which is untrue, or which is deeply hurtful or unkind or something. You're saying something, you're doing something, okay? So transgressions have to be worked on like this. A person steals something, okay, that's a transgression. They behave in a way which is physically or in other ways harmful to others. These are transgressions that have to be worked with. There are also obscurations which are more subtle than this. So we have moods which obscure our day and our mind. This is a level of manifestation. So we're not expressing them here. These aren't at the level of transgression, but these come in the form of thought or mood. Our thoughts can be, as you know, and I've experienced, they can be very unwholesome. They can be very uncomfortable to experience when we're angry. When even if we're not speaking out of our anger, but just when we're holding anger, we resent something that's occurred and we can't let go of that resentment. When there's a mood of lethargy or deep sort of indifference, that kind of thing. So this level of obscuration is more subtle. We're not doing things which are literally and overtly harmful, but we're certainly experiencing, and out of these experiences can easily come, of course, unwholesome actions of various sorts. And at the deepest level, we have what are, well, the Pali is anusaya, but these are proclivities. So this is what we don't normally see, not so clearly. This is the level of habitual tendencies, okay? These come right out of the fact that we don't see clearly. We have hindrances which are operative in our consciousness, and we simply live out of them. This is how we construct the world. This is how we make of the world. And so we, from one day to the next, to put it in sort of classical terms, we take what is impermanent, changeable, to be permanent and unchanging, stable, reliable. We take what is actually unsatisfactory, which does not have in it does not have in itself what it takes to be satisfactory. We take what is unsatisfactory to be satisfying, to be satisfactory. And we take what is not self, not comprising a substantial, enduring source of identity. We take our experience to be stable, and for there to be a stable, enduring source of identity at the basis of it. So we make these fundamental errors. And out of these errors, of course, come the other two levels or dimensions that I've mentioned. And it's here, it's through this is part of the Dhamma here, what makes it so beautiful. It's through acquainting ourselves with the Noble Eightfold Path, or following the path in various ways and guises that we become familiar with, that we learn about, that we study, that we just acquaint ourselves with and habituate ourselves to. It's through this that we, in sort of technical or in the language that you understand, we ultimately purify sila, samadhi, and panya. So virtue, concentration, and wisdom. So thinking back to those three dimensions of error that we make are the transgressions that we will normally make owing to ignorance. Things that we do, say, speak, and all of that. Those are held at bay. Those are reduced and purified through sila, through morality, through virtue. And as virtue becomes purified, that level of transgression becomes more and more subdued. The states of mind, such as anger, frustration, resentment, and this kind of thing, or desirous states of mind where we just can't get some desire out of our mind. Lust maybe, or some desire for a new this or that, a brand new computer, something like that. These kinds of desires which intrude in our daily life and disrupt our attention regularly, these become subdued, stilled through concentration, through samadhi. So the second element of the Noble Eightfold Path then comes into play and addresses this second dimension of these obscurations. And in the most subtle form, the anusaya, the proclivities, the latent tendencies, these are going to be subdued, but ultimately purified and seen through with the light of wisdom itself. So panya works at that level. So it's helpful, I think, sometimes to this is a kind of, you're all familiar with the analytic approach of the Dhamma. This is one of the ways that this analysis is applied to the Eightfold Path and to our practice itself. And from time to time, it can be helpful because even when we recognize we haven't penetrated life reality and everything through the light of penetrative wisdom, and we judge ourselves in that way. If we're honest and careful in our assessment of ourselves, we will very likely see that at the very least, at the level of transgression, we make make a difference in our experience every day. Because mindfulness just naturally brings us to a state where we're less and less apt to speak unkindly, in that kind of pointed manner that, sometimes we're polite and encouraging with friends, but it's our husbands and wives and people that live in close proximity that get the brunt of our bad moods. We can't quite purify the quality of our words at that level. So we kind of snipe a little bit, and there's a little bit of nastiness that erupts in our language. Well, when we're actually watching our moods with some care and observing sila as best we can, we catch ourselves more and more early. And for that matter, when there is some degree of samadhi, when there is, regular meditation practice, for instance, we become accustomed to just the body and the mind in a fairly comfortable and calm state. And what is it that really intrudes on that? Well, anger is one of those things, resentment, these sorts of things. So we catch ourselves early. We catch ourselves earlier through our practice, through regular practice. And in so doing, it's much easier to notice the level of transgression when it might arise. This because sila is more attentive, is more vibrant, is more robust in daily life. And when a degree of wisdom is occurring, so both the fact that we are calming our minds, our nama rupa, our body and minds through meditation with some regularity. So we're observing what a calm state of mind and a clear way of looking at the world looks like. That's becoming more and more ingrained in our experience. When we see these things, it's also natural, and it's also a good idea, naturally a good idea, to remind ourselves, this too will change. This is enjoyable, but at the end of this meal, still I have to brush my teeth, and most of it's going to go through my body and turn into waste. And so we recognize these natural things. And in this way, we you might say, just gently undermine those basic errors that human consciousness normally makes, that there is something of lasting satisfaction to be found in the world, that I am somebody who, this ego here really ought to be and needs to be and deserves to be defended at all costs. So we're working at ourselves. We don't have to do this in an aggressive fashion with anger, but we're just dropping, we're just dropping the little stone in the pond. We're just creating that disruptive but beautiful and necessary ripple in the surface of the water, to remind ourselves of the basic truths: anicca, dukkha, anatta. And doing so, making a habit of such things, means that when we have opportunities to meditate regularly, that's good. And when maybe a few times a year we have opportunities or make opportunities to engage in meditation in a more formal fashion, maybe over a few days, it makes a possibility of these deep truths erupting in our consciousness. It makes this possibility a more living thing. It becomes more present and apparent to us. The mind, the obscurations become thinner. They become less persistent, less dominant to our experience. It becomes more natural to see the world as changing. We, like me and my deer and the forest around me, and and watching the snow go and all of this, we're remembering that's because it's impermanent. That's because these things don't last. Oh, that's kind of like my moods. They don't last either. Yeah, and I was really angry about the way he spoke to me yesterday. And where did that go? It didn't go anywhere, because it just went away. I don't experience that now. It was impermanent. It wasn't real. It wasn't important in a way. It's important to note, but it's not important. It's certainly not important enough to hang on to cultivate in earnest. No. Don't make anything of it. So these are just reminders coming from all kinds of angles, and according to our own dispositions, our own kind of predilections, the way our minds work. I mean, we all have to make the Dhamma work for us. We have to make it work in ways which make sense to our particular temperaments. So that's why I think, I'm sure you've all recognized that it's important for you to read different things, to look at different elements of the Dhamma, to observe and to take in Dhamma talks from different people who have different ways of looking at Dhamma, approaching Dhamma, practicing Dhamma, because different things will appeal to different people. I'm saying something which is, I think, very apparent to all of you, but it doesn't hurt to be reminded of this. We have to make the Dhamma our own. And we do this by taking note of what works for us, working with it, being creative in how it is that we approach the Dhamma, approach our practice. And by doing so, it's part of the way that makes the Dhamma beautiful in the middle. So,
Sadhu, 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 anamodami.
yes, I'll leave that reflection for you with my good wishes, and have time for some questions if anyone has any.
Shirley, would you like to moderate?
Is there anyone that has a question?
Me?
as usual.
That's great.
It's always me, though.
Elizabeth.
Yeah.
Here I am. Just a little story to do with what your teaching is. Today I was parked into my home by a courier van, and I knocked on a couple of doors to find the van driver and ask him to move. And I think I deliberately unleashed the wild woman when I found him, so that he would get into his van and move. He was actually moving furniture. So there was anger and there was wild woman, and he moved really quickly. Sometimes that targeted anger works. If I'd been full of loving kindness and, meek, I think I'd still be parked in. What's your comment?
Well, I guess it's a challenge for any of us. Sometimes you find this, especially in the Tibetan tradition, I think, and a sense of power. So, is it possible to speak in a direct way, kind of evoking your own power, but which doesn't bring about that? You can answer this question yourself, but that anger, was there a residue after that incident where you felt? Yeah. So he probably felt it, but you're the first person to suffer from it, and probably the last person to suffer with it as well. So what would you prefer? But I think we all understand what you mean. I mean, sometimes you have to be direct, and an example that often comes to people's mind is, a child, a little 3-year-old, is about to wander out into the traffic, and do you kindly, hello dear, please, oh, better stop, come on back to mommy, and no, probably you evoke the mama bear, and you grab the kid by the collar and bring it back in before he or she is seriously injured. So there's is anger necessary in that? No, but it's direct, and there's power, there's energy involved. Yeah. But I expect, I'm sure everybody recognizes that kind of predicament you found yourself in today, and especially if you were looking around, well, where is he? And you have these kinds of questions, and meanwhile time is ticking away, and you've got an appointment to get to or whatever. I mean, we've all been there. We all understand. But the question for me is, and the challenge for me is, whoops, just a second, my battery's about to give out on me. The challenge is to be able to do that. And by the way, in a quiet community like a monastery, you just ask any abbot whether sometimes they have to pretty forceful, maybe because there's a guest who is going to have to be told that they're going to have to move along, or maybe there's one of the monastics in training that has losing the plot. I mean, being a Buddhist doesn't always mean sort of appearing nice in the way that we use that word often, because we need to be honest and direct, and feel a legitimate sense of force in that, I think. Sometimes we don't get a lot of time to practice either, and so if we're in a reactive, if all we can do in a situation, something happens quickly, and all we can do is react. If there's anger there's anger. That's what's happened. This can get better though when we've practiced. And when do we practice? Well, it's when we feel some anger coming because of something, but when we don't really need to act in the next second. Okay, I've got 5 minutes. I've got 2 minutes. I'm angry. It's the first thing, recognizing, oh, this is what anger feels like. It's just it's like this. It's just bringing back Lumpur Tomato. It never gets stale. Anger's like this. Oh boy, I don't like it. It feels like this. It's hot right here. I don't like it. But I've got to get this guy to move. I've got to make this change. I've got to say these words to this person. I don't want to, but something can't continue in this way. I have to do this. So if you've got 2 minutes, use those 2 minutes to breathe a little bit deeply into that. Allow the energy to settle a bit. And at the same time, it might also enable you to compose the mind a little bit, bring up some words that might be helpful. How will I approach this guy so I don't shock him? He's not I don't mean to kind of interject all this into your particular situation, because who knows what it was like. But the people that we surprise with our little outbursts, I mean, they may be completely clueless, completely good-natured folk, and then they just don't realize what they're doing.
You realize what it was like.
Well, sometimes maybe they're passive aggressive too, and they realize quite well. I don't know. But if you have a minute, use it. If you've got 2 minutes, use it. If you've got 2 breaths, use them. And it all comes down to mindfulness, doesn't it? But if we've said something we wish we hadn't, maybe he was, maybe you see the guy 10 minutes later when you've come back, and you say, hey, boy, sorry about that. Sometimes I get really ticked off, no hard feelings, I hope, something like that. We have ways of doing that as well. Sometimes it's not appropriate, to do that, because you need to be direct and forceful, and something has to end, and it begins now, and it begins to end now. Sorry, but you're going to have to go. It's a little like that. Yeah, every situation is a little different, and I don't think there's an easy way through them all, but it's always a little easier by being mindful, taking as many breaths as we need, and maybe composing the mind in such a way that the first few words are as gentle as they can be, direct and as clear as they can be, and take it from there. Yeah, so we can all wish ourselves good luck for that. All of us human beings, I think we're all humans okay, yeah. Just checking all of us, yeah, we're all humans here, so we all have that, share that. So Mary, okay, Mary and Barb came on, and nope, I didn't miss. Judy is there. Okay, did I miss anyone? Jacqueline, Pat from Seashelt, Jackie Balfour. Okay, Brian, maybe I didn't mention Brian. Bodhi, hello Bodhi. Okay, I think I've said hello to everyone.
Does anyone else have a question?
I have a quick question, Ajahn.
Yes.
I noticed there's a retreat coming up with Ajahn Anand. Is that correct?
Yes.
And my question is, say, in terms of time zones, there's a 2-hour, I think there's a...
You're about 9 hours there. Oh, wait a minute. Right, our time zone has changed. Somebody in the, so right now, Michael and Cito, who else? Victor.
It's 14 hours.
14.
Different from Vancouver. 14-hour different from Vancouver.
Thank you.
Okay. Do you subtract or add?
I'm ahead of you, 14 hours ahead of you.
Okay.
From Vancouver. I mean, Thailand and
Yeah.
Vancouver. Thailand
Well,
is 14 hours earlier, faster.
And Malaysia is 12 hours from me right now, I think, right? Is that right, Michael, Sito? Is it 10:30 there?
It's
Yeah,
Tuesday.
that's right. Yes, right.
It's Thursday. It's Thursday.
That's all I care about. As long as I know where I am.
Yes, it's
There's
Thursday.
Sorry. Yeah, my sense of these retreats is that they are, when we've sort of tuned into them, we've sort of found when he's giving a Dhamma talk and that kind of thing. I don't think you need to worry about it, and you just tune in and then see what's happening and take it from there, kind of thing. As far as I know, they're quite easygoing about people, groups coming in and out. And it's just a nice opportunity. It's, as you know, I mean, you'll be able to sit with a pretty good sized Sangha there. I don't know whether there will be lay people, because they're usually lay visitors at that monastery. But it's the range, it's not the winter retreat because it's not the winter. What am I talking about? Okay. Yeah, so yeah, it'll be nice.
Perhaps,
It's a very, very beautiful sala, so it's very inspiring to see the big Buddha behind Lumpur and that. And he's a very, very skillful teacher. He's a great monk. So yeah, I hope you're able to take advantage of some of that. And I think Jean was going to, if I didn't send this off to too many folks, but Jean was going to kind of.
I did do that this afternoon, Vancouver time. I sent it to quite a large group of people, those that are on the list for your sittings and also other sittings that we host.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot. Great. Okay. So
Ajahn Pavaro, perhaps I can give a little bit of information on Ajahn Anand's
yes,
retreat.
please.
Yeah, if you go to the to our Ajahn Anand's website, right, you can go straight to the retreat, online retreat, and from the online retreat itself, you can find your schedule, time schedule, different time zone schedule in the website as well. So all the information you need is all in there. So you just kind of run through the whole thing, and you can see that we have registration, we have recording, we have donations, and we have time schedule, agenda. Everything is in there. So all you need to do is just click on the right link, and you will see everything there. If you have any question, perhaps you can send us an email anytime.
Great, thanks. So Brock, you asked the wrong person. Joyce was the one to go to. Yeah.
Victor is also helping us out. Yeah, Victor.
She's handled a lot of organization over the years. So thank you, Joyce. That's perfect.
It's actually quite easy if you go to the site. That's Carol.
Yes.
Good, Carol.
Yeah,
Great.
because I went today. The time schedule is right there.
Great.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and I did send it to a few people who aren't on this normal list who attended the pilgrimage with me years ago, and a few of those Canadians, I think they're all Canadians in that group, actually, some of them came to Wat Mapchan, so perhaps Stan and Vera, some of you might know them. They might enjoy seeing Lumpur Anand again.
Does anyone else have a question?
Ajahn Pavaro, is your winter retreat over?
No, not quite. What's the date today? The 23rd. So basically we go to the end of the month. So it's coming up pretty quickly now, but we're almost there. I've been a little bit out of it because I hurt my back about 6 days ago, I suppose. And so I've been kind of hobbling about and doing a lot of walking meditation in my kuti, which is basically 9 steps each way. It's not too generous a space in that way, but very nice kuti. anyway, I do some chanting. If you know chanting, actually, I find it a very good way to at least get started with walking meditation. Just, it just brings the mind into a wholesome state, and it's for a monk, it's a very good way to practice, just because we have quite a few blessing chants and funeral chants and whatnot to know. So very good to know that you're pretty secure in that way. So anyway, back's a little bit better now, quite a bit better now.
Would you like to end our evening with a chant, Ajahn? If there are no more, unless there are more questions first. I should have asked that first. Sorry. There seemed to be a lull as far as that went.
Sometimes you have to be patient. They're gonna get coaxed out. You have to
Okay,
give them time.
I will wait.
Having had my hot drink and prepared for this and all that, by this time I'm usually not in any big hurry to get back to my kuti. So don't worry about things at my end.
Okay. Are there any?
Woody, how are you doing?
I'm okay, thanks. I just got back from a weekend or a week. I guess it was midweek. I'm getting lose track of this stuff in semi-retirement land, but been in Victoria for a couple of days.
Nice.
Lovely. Yeah, thanks. I've been listening to a lot of Ajahn Anan in the last month, and I'm looking forward to
Oh, very good. That's
seeing
great.
him live. Yeah.
Good news. Good news. Great. Yes, June.
Hi, Ajahn. Something you said this evening that stood out for me was a comment to make the Dhamma one's own. By listening, taking in. So I was wondering if you would say a little bit more about that. How, what, maybe a personal example or just in general.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the most lovely challenge we have, because, just a basic accounting of the meditation objects, in the Visuddhimagga, 40 different types of meditation, and so many approaches to Dhamma, and so many ways of doing walking meditation, and maybe none of you had thought about chanting while you're doing your walking meditation. And there's just so many approaches to this, let alone our temperaments. Some of us find irritation comes up really easily, and some of us it's desiring mind, or it's fogginess, or whatever. And each of these mind states, each of these temperaments, requires a different approach, basically. Then we have our own predilections, our own history, both in the practice, but just in life too. Images that work for us. Listening to Dhamma talks, and this simile just really hit home, and this one it just sort of doesn't go anywhere for you, or and very well how extensive the Dhamma itself is, just even in the classical literature, the suttas themselves. So you can read long and hard through the Anguttara Nikaya, and maybe you find one sutta that finally just hits home. Is that because of the timing of it, or because of the actual images, the similes, or the lists that the Buddha provided, or the personality of the monks who are somehow represented in the sutta itself? Sometimes I like to go through a book of poetry, and I'm happy usually because I never studied poetry, and I don't intend to make it a study particularly, but I'm usually happy when how poetry books are pretty short, usually 60, 80 pages. And I'm usually really happy when two really I just love, two poems that I just really love. So, but when you find that, then it becomes something. They become something important, and the Dhamma is like that too. I've given the example before, and this is just an example of how I my mind seems to work with the Dhamma to such a large extent. But I've given the example before of hearing in a Dhamma talk the quotation, humility is the love of reality. And, I still bring that up from time to time, but I literally brought that up every day and more than once every day for years, because I just found it such a beautiful notion. And, like Bach will say, or like some sort of challenging piece of music, or I have a kind of mind which seems to move in the direction of aesthetics. That's just the way it is. But like some poem or some haiku or some moment of experience, some little thing that you notice a dog doing, anything, a child saying something. Sometimes there's such a potency in some small event, some small experience, that if you treat it with some kind of tender care and return to it, not with a mind which knows, but one which is simply curious, because initially it struck you as something wonderful. This makes it, it becomes a kind of resource that you can return to again and again, and it can be fresh for a long time. I mean, again, I'm speaking here from some experience. You can return to it quite often. So, and usually what underlies these sorts of things is something like impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, or not self, the transiency of life, how ephemeral things are, how human relations change on a dime sometimes, how this or that assumption that we had, this or that habit that we had, this or that view we had about some person can suddenly just transform, change, or shift in a moment. And quite often, in my experience, these observations that sort of strike me at one time or another, then they deepen in that way, and so they cultivate a kind of aesthetic, an appreciation for what I would call beauty, because we've just been talking about the Dhamma being beautiful in the beginning, middle, and end, yeah. And if some kind of transformative insight into the transiency, the instability of life at its deepest core, if that experience wasn't beautiful, I'd be surprised. Beauty is just one of the things, yeah. I mean, it's just one of its characteristics, but I believe that we'll find these things to be wondrously beautiful in the experience. So anyway, I mean, I guess that's an example of how my own temperament has worked with the Dhamma over time. Sometimes, I'm just kind of trying to trot out themes that I've used to reflect on Dhamma in past occasions like these. But I like a good list too. I like to be able to run through a good list and just kind of reflect on this term, and then this term moving into this one, and this experience moving into this one, and reflect on a kind of causality in them, the relationship between them. And for me, there's a beauty in that too, because there's a kind of organism, there's a wholeness, a gestalt, because that is a characteristics of Dhamma. As one great monk once said, the Dhamma is one thing all the way through. Worldly experience, it comes in pairs. We like it, we don't like it. It's hard, it's hot, it's cold, it's big, it's small, it's painful, it's not, on and on and on. We judge things as this and that. But the Dhamma is one thing all the way through. And the beautiful challenge we have as human beings who happen to have the good fortune to encounter the Dhamma and practice it, the beautiful challenge we have is the utter simplicity, in a kind of mathematical or arithmetic sense of finding the oneness of things. It isn't about, the Dhamma can seem so complex, there's so much to know. There's another list, I forgot that list. Oh my God. I used to know it. It was only 12 things. I used to know it and I've forgotten it. Oh no. Now I'll never get insight because I've forgotten that list. Oh, no. It's not about that ultimately. It's about arranging the heart and mind in just the right kind of place to be able to experience one moment after another as it is, as they are. And to see the truth in them, which is to see the one thing the one characteristics that make reality speak to us fully and finally for what it is. So anyway, there are just so many approaches to Dhamma, and I'm quite sure that those kinds of reflections I've just given won't really make much sense to some people. Bach, what does Bach got to do? What does poetry got to do with Dhamma? No, there are different temperaments, quite rightly, and that's quite all right. But the Dhamma is big enough to encompass all of these things, because there has to be an avenue into it for any human being with 6 senses, and who is a living, breathing person, who can begin by just watching her or his breath. So.
Elizabeth, I noticed that you held up your Zen poems book.
Okay, Zen poems. There you go. And
this is the woman. This is the nun who was a potter as well.
Oh, good.
And, her name was Lotus Moon, and she wrote poetry, and she put them on her pots.
Oh, nice. Elizabeth is a very good potter. She's a potter in Australia.
Yeah.
Oh, is that you, Liz? I didn't know it was you, Liz. Liz from Sydney.
Yeah, I haven't changed my name.
Oh, okay. Oh, great to see you.
It's autumn here. That we've got some autumn color.
Oh, nice for you. That's nice.
Yeah, I can't complain about the cold to you lot though.
If there's one thing that draws all Canadians together, it's love of complaining about our weather.
I'm really surprised they look like real flowers in beside you.
Well, they are. What do you mean? What do you think they are? Of course they are. But they were picked, I don't know, they're grown in a greenhouse, I guess.
There must be hothouse. I'm just surprised to see them because it's winter and yeah.
Yeah, no, it's no, we get flowers brought to us. There are always some good people who make sure our shrines are well populated with flowers, at the right time of the month. So we're lucky in that regard.
Will you be doing Ajahn Anand's retreat there?
Well, it's a little bit of an awkward time because it'll just be on the cusp of us ending our winter retreat and beginning our kind of normal season. So I've got to kind of discuss it a little bit with the community. But maybe we'll join in for our morning and evening pujas. That might work out. We'll just have to see. But I think I'll have to kind of run it by the community and see what's going to work for us. But yeah, I hope to at least a few times. Yeah, it's just nice, because I've spent some time around him over the years, and it's very heartwarming and encouraging just to see this wonderful man.
Oh, good. I'll be very kind to that van driver if I ever see him again.
Oh, I'm sure you will. I'm sure you've been very kind to a good number of people in your lifetime. Yeah.
I do find that, just general observation, that the older I get, the more outspoken I can become,
Mm-hmm.
I got the courage to speak my mind more, which is going against the practice in so many ways. But
yeah, well, I think when you get really, really old, then you can just about say anything you want, and people just they let it go. But anyway.
I mean, you can keep yourself. It's the wisdom of the elders, but it's the wisdom of the elders, because now.
Well, even really wise elders, I've noticed that they manage to speak very, very well at all times. So the really wise elders that I've been able to be around from time to time, they always seem to have a composed way of saying what they need to say. It's one of the blessings of living long enough that you've met a few truly remarkable people, because you get to see people in various circumstances, and that this or that circumstance would have been very challenging for anyone you've ever met in the world, and then this person is able to say the right thing at the right time, and that's another kind of work of art in its own right, so something to aspire to for all of us.
That's exactly what I think of you, Kaprajan, when you had the surgery at the hospital and I was attending for you, and that's exactly what I was thinking of you, Kaprajan.
Oh, thanks, Victor. I must have been the meds, eh? Must have been all that Tylenol they were giving me. Yeah, no, I don't really remember actually a lot of discomfort, and so it was pretty easy.
It's very, very inspiring, Kaprajan, to be able to attend to you.
Yeah, I had a lot of experienced a lot of kindness at that time. Hi, Jacinta. How are you doing? Wave. Hi, Stephen.
Hello. We just unmuted ourselves.
Really great. Thank you so much. What a
Good.
beautiful night.
Good. Yeah. Nice night. Yeah. Nice to see all these friends. I mean, we do become a bit of a community, don't we? Don't you sort of feel that over time? We get used to, oh, there's Elizabeth. I wonder what she's going to ask tonight. That kind of thing. And Barb perpetually outside of her ski lodge. I guess Barb's still there. Hi, Barb. Okay, well, maybe it's time to say good evening then. Good night, good morning, afternoon. Very, very enjoyable, very pleasant to see you all, and I wish you all the best in your practice. And may we join up again when conditions permit.
Thank you so much, Ajahn.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you, Ajahn Pavaro.
Thank you,
Thank
Ajahn.
you.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
for
Thank
being
you,
here.
DBS.
Bye, everyone.
Good night.
Good
Good
night.
night.
Good
Thank you.
night,
Good night, Prajam. Good night, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Good night,
Good night.
Connie.
Thank you for
Good night,
coming.
everyone.
you.
everybody.
Good
Good
night.
night, everyone.
Good
Good
night.
night,
Good night.
Joy.
Good night. Thank you for coming.
Good night,
Thank you
Jane.
for organizing
Jane.
this. Thank you very
Bye. Good
much.
night,
Good night.
Victor. Bye.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, Stephen. And
Good night, Stephen.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night, Stephen.
I'm wondering if Barbara's actually there.
She did send a message saying thank you.
Ah,
Thank you, Ajahn.
Yeah.
That's
oh,
what-
just at the
yeah.
end? Okay.
Yeah, she just sent a message.
Oh, there
Maybe
she is.
Jean, I sent you a chat. I wondered if we could. have
Yes,
a-
it was you. I thought it was Connie.
Yeah.
Yes, we can. Yeah. Connie's asking, or Carol's asking if we chat about the upcoming retreat, not now, but find another time, which is fine.
We're not going to chat now.
Carol's saying no, she'd rather not. She's got some other things to do.
Okay, yeah, not a problem.
I realized the chat.
I did not.
you.
Okay, I didn't get the latest. You sent an update on the registration form, Carol. I didn't get a copy of it. I think you just sent it to Jean.
No, I sent it to DBS registration, I think. I sent it to one of those websites that Jean wanted me to send them to. So you should be able to access it.
You know what? I
okay.
think it might have come just to me. You might have sent it to Dhamma Buddhist Society at gmail.com. I
Oh.
remember seeing it going to me, and I'm not sure Connie was copied on it.
Connie, you don't have access
Yeah.
to that? I thought it would go to both of you if I send it to them.
No, I
No, we
only
have
have
separate
access
email
to the
addresses.
DBS registrar.
Oh, okay, okay,
But I
Yeah.
can forward it to Connie. Don't worry about it.
okay.
Okay. All right. That's great, Jean.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
you
that,
can
that's
just forward
good
it to me.
because then Connie should have time to review it before we talk about it anyway, I think.
Right.
Yeah, sure. That would be fine.
And late this afternoon, I sent to both Carol and Connie proposed fees for members versus non-members, because I think Carol
Yep.
suggested fees based on minimum of 10 people, and there may be more at $8.50, which covers all the costs.
Yeah.
And if there's a couple more people, then there's some extra there.
Yeah,
And I'd suggest, just because our membership fees are $15, that if we charge $8.50 to members, we could charge $8.90 to non-members, and probably nobody would do that, because if they pay $8.50 plus 15, they save $25 by becoming a member. So
Yeah.
that was just a suggestion.
sounds good.
Okay.
Okay, so
All
we'll
right.
set up a time.
Okay.
Connie, you have a look at the stuff that Jean forwarded to you, and then we can set up a time to talk about it.
Yeah. And some things could even be done by email, but if not, yeah, I think probably maybe a quick Zoom call at some point
Yeah. Okay,
to finalize the financial part of it.
bye Shirley. Bye
Bye,
everybody.
Carol. So nice
Okay.
to see you. Okay, bye.
Okay.
All right.
I'm a bit
Bye.
tired
Bye.
too, so I'm happy
Good
to
night.
end
Okay.
tonight.
Love
Good-
to you
Yeah,
and,
it's a long day.
Sam and Amanda and Dexter. Hope he's well.
Okay.
He's
And
fine.
Jean, how is Lucy?
There's no update really this week. I should say though that when Anne said, "Oh, Jean's mother-in-law's had another stroke," I think she painted a picture with that language, and she has had a setback, but it wasn't like it was before. She probably had a TIA, but she's also had a bladder infection, which has caused confusion. Her blood pressure's been high, and
Watch your
her
bladder
electrolytes are off too. So
Mm.
they're trying to
Mhm.
manage all of that. So instead of
Right.
where she was on the cusp of going to assisted living, she's now staying in hospital to see if she can stabilize. So
Right.
that's a question. We don't really
Right.
know where it's going to go
Yep.
from here. So thank you. I want to give a lot of detail to the whole group, but
Right.
thank you for your concern, and
We'll be sending loving kindness to her.
thank you so much. Thank you.
Yep. And to you and Michael and the whole family, all of you.
Thank you. And to you and Betty as well,
Oh, thank you. Okay.
Connie and household. Good night.
Good night. Good night.
Bye.